Hey everybody, James Chen, aka Jay Chenzor here. We're going to be talking more about offense in City of the Wolves, and in this video we're going to be talking about the more potent and powerful offense, starting with special moves. Of course, you're probably familiar with special moves if you've played other fighting games before, but special moves are moves that require particular inputs with the joystick and button to perform. That is, of course, if you are using arcade style. Of course, if you happen to be using Smart Style, the Smart Style control scheme, all you need to do is just press the special move button to perform these special moves. However, in this video, we're going to be covering arcade style only, but if you'd like a future video dedicated to Smart Style, let me know in the comments. So let's talk about performing special moves. The most common special move input that you'll find in City of the Wolves is going to be the quarter circle forward motion. If you actually look at the bottom of the screen where there's the virtual controller down here, you see quarter circle forward is going to be down, down forward, and forward like this, kind of done in a circular motion. This is why it's called a quarter circle forward. There's also numpad notation where we call it a 2-3-6, but if you'd like me to explain numpad notation in another video, please let me know in the comments. Again, let's talk about this quarter circle forward. So here, I'm going to demonstrate a quarter circle forward punch with Rock's Reppuken. Again, it's down, down, forward, and forward, kind of in a single motion like this. And then, of course, with Reppuken, you're using punch. So again, you can see at the bottom of the screen how I'm going from down, down, forward to forward and pressing punch as soon as I finish the motion. We do say forward as opposed to left or right, just because you do have to mirror the input if you happen to switch sides. So now you're going to see the quarter circle forward motion goes in this direction. So forward is always the direction that your character happens to be facing. Another very common input is going to be the DP motion. The DP motion is called such because it stands for Dragon Punch, because it's the infamous move that Ryu and Ken used in Street Fighter since the very, very beginning. This input requires a forward tap, then pressing down and shifting the controller to down forward. So again, it's forward tap, down and down forward. So here I'm going to demonstrate this with Rock's Rising Tackle. Forward, down, down, forward. But again, you can't take too long to do the motions. As you can see here, if I take a little too long to do them, the move won't come out. So you do have to do them relatively quickly, like so. But actually, it's not even as fast as you might think. I mean, if you look here, as you can see, I'm doing them pretty slow here. That quarter circle forward is pretty slow. And the Dragon Punch motion over here, again, not super fast. So once you get good at this game, of course, you're just going to be busting these things out like in rapid succession here, like this, like no problem. But if you're new to fighting games and new to performing these motions, do understand that you can take your time with the motions. This is not some sort of thing that you have to like rush as fast as you can. So, you know, take the time, get used to doing them slowly at first, and eventually you'll get to the point where you could just throw them out like super fast. So don't worry, you'll get there, you'll get there. Now, special moves are generally more powerful attacks than normals. Like these are Rock's normals over here. Special moves tend to involve a lot more movement. Such as, you know, the ability to charge at the opponent like this, or, you know, rise up into the air, or they can be an arcing attack like this, or some characters even have throws that are special moves. But keep in mind that all the different special moves serve very different purposes. They all have all sorts of different behavior. So make sure that you know, experiment with your character and figure out what all these moves do for your character. And in fact, as I mentioned, you know, when you do, for example, the quarter circle forward, it's with punches. But there are two different punches. And you'll actually see that, you know, doing a move with a light punch like this is actually different than when you do it with a heavy punch. So there's even variety within a single special move. For example, here, Terry's crack shoot The light kick goes a small distance, but the heavy kick, I mean, travels very, very far. And in fact, depending on the character, the different buttons can kind of almost be extremely different from each other. For example, here, Hoktamaru's teleport here, his ninja teleport, if you do it with the light punch, you can see that, wherever Hoktamaru is, he will just drop from the sky in exactly the same position that he was. However, if you do it with the heavy kick button, Hoktamaru will always teleport next to the opponent and even come down with a kick. The light punch one can't even hit at all on the way down, but the heavy one can actually attack. So again, two very, different uses for the single special move using both light punch and heavy punch. Again, experiment with your characters and, find out what all the different special moves do and what purposes they have. And, if you can, go to the command list inside the game because they'll even try to give you a little bit of hints on how to use these. For example, the Reppuken, the projectile, says keep far away opponents at bay. And, the rising tackle, it says useful as an anti-air. So again, you can use the command list here and even see what the move looks like in their nice little animations here to get a better idea of how to use these moves. Now, one of the other ways that special moves are special is that they can do damage to the opponents even while they are blocking. You notice when you do normal attacks, there's no damage there, but, if the opponent is blocking a special move, as you can see in the upper right corner, Terry is actually taking a little bit of damage even though he's blocking the attack. The amount of damage that you take on block is going to depend on how much damage the move does in general. So you see in the upper left over here, it says 60 damage for that light Reppuken. But if I set Terry to guard, you'll see that it does 10 damage. And in fact, that's how it is across the board. When you block special moves, the damage that you take will always be equal to 1/6 of the damage of the actual special move. This damage that you take while you're blocking is known as chip damage. So be careful if you're trying to play extremely defensive here. If the opponent just keeps barraging you with special moves over and over and over again, you could look up and find out that you've lost a giant chunk of life. So try not to be too defensive against special moves. And in fact, if you don't have enough life in your health gauge at the top of the screen, I'm going to set Terry here to 2% here. You'll see, like, for example, the first Reppuken drains him down to just a tiny bit of life. But if the chip damage actually drains you to 0 health, you will be KO'd. So you have to be extra careful when you have very little life left blocking special moves, because you can definitely lose if you block a special move with no health. The other thing that makes special moves so special is that they can actually be canceled into from some of your normal attacks. This allows you to perform combos such as standing heavy punch into Reppuken, or you can use it for pressure sequences like so on opponents who are actually blocking. Now keep in mind that only some normals can be canceled into special moves. So experiment with your character and figure out exactly, all the different moves that can actually cancel into special moves. And keep in mind that even though far heavy kick, for example, with rock doesn't cancel, close-up heavy kick does. So close-up and far moves count as different normal attacks. Keep in mind that there are some special moves that can only be performed in the air, such as this dive attack here from Hotaru. And with Hoktamaru, he has a special move. I showed you the teleport earlier. He can do this from the ground and the air. So again, keep in mind that some characters have these special moves that can be done only in the air, and some special moves can be done basically at any point in the air or on the ground. So a couple of extra things to talk about when it comes to special moves. Oftentimes you'll find that you want to perform a special move as soon as possible after your character recovers from any action. This is known as reversal timing, doing moves as fast as possible. So for example here, with this kind of a launcher here, you want to try to perform Rock's elbow as soon as possible, because if you're a little too slow with that, you're just gonna miss here. So you want to make sure you do that the instant Rock recovers from that launcher attack. Well, Fatal Fury has a technique by which you can more easily perform special moves with reversal timing by holding the button down, as you can see in the display at the bottom of the screen. The window for this is actually really generous. For example, check the timing with the inputs displayed at the bottom of the screen over here. So, as you can see, I performed the light hard edge really early and was holding the button long before it was time for Rock to perform the attack. I'll show you again. You hear it. You can even hear my button press. I'm pressing it really early and the move still comes out. And you'll see what happens when I don't hold the button here, doing it at the same timing. You see nothing comes out here, but if I hold the button, I mean, I hit that so early that time. I talk about this technique because this is definitely something you should learn very early on. Get used to holding the button down when you want to perform special moves with reversal timing. One of the most common situations that you're going to be needing to perform this kind of reversal is going to be when you're getting up off of the ground like this and the opponent wants to keep pressuring you in this situation. You have invincible moves such as Rock's light rising tackle. You can even see it says invincible on the screen. So you want to perform that as soon as you get up off the ground. And even if you're just a little too late, you're gonna get punched in the face. So you want to make sure that you do this with perfect reversal timing. Use the button hold. And did you see how early I did that? I literally input the DP motion and hit light punch and just held it, and I did that really early. In particular, in the wake up situation here, it's so generous how early you can press the button and hold it and still perform a wake up attack at the absolute earliest moment possible. Now, if you come from other fighting games, you may be used to double tapping for performing moves as fast as possible. Like so, double tapping instead of holding. Look, just kill that muscle memory now, okay? Get used to using the button hold method. Even sometimes, I've noticed that when I've tried to do the double tapping, it seems like the move just doesn't come out for some reason, and like that, for example. And so the button hold is just far more reliable. So try to get used to that if you're used to double tapping from other fighting games to try to get the reversals out. The button hold is just so much more consistent. Now this next thing that I'm going to talk about here is going to be a little more complicated, but it's vital to know. As I've mentioned, two of the most common motions that you have is quarter circle forward and DP with an attack button. Well, there's a problem that you're going to be running to very early on, and it's going to be really irritating, and there's no obvious solution to this problem. So in many SNK games, the DP motion, which I said was forward, down, forward, has a lot of leniency. So that if you hit forward and then down, forward, the DP will still come out. As you can see here, I'm actually ending the input at forward and the DP is still coming out. They even talk about this in the tutorial as a means by which, you know, they make it so that you can do the DP motions more consistently. However, this leads to a big problem. What if I walk forward and I genuinely want to do a quarter circle forward? If I walk forward and try to Reppuken, I'm gonna come out with the rising tackle every single time, which is really bad in particular because if you're trying to walk forward and throw a Reppuken and you accidentally come out with a rising tackle, oh, your opponent is gonna be waiting to take advantage of that in as painful as a way as possible. So how do you get around this problem? How do you actually walk forward and throw a fireball? Again, I said that this section was going to be a little more complex, but this is something you're going to have to learn very early on because you do not want to accidentally perform a DP like that. So to make sure you actually get the quarter circle forward special move, it does require a fairly advanced technique if you are a beginner to the game. There is a technique known as tiger kneeing a move, named after Sagat's original input for the tiger knee way back in Street Fighter II Champion Edition. But basically means that you're ending a special move input in a jump position. So again, look at the bottom of the screen. If I want to do quarter circle forward, it's down, down, forward, forward. But to tiger knee a special move, you would do the same motion, but end that up forward instead. So you're tacking on just that up forward at the very end of the quarter circle forward. This is what you have to do to make sure you get the quarter circle forward motion out. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's intentionally programmed by SNK to be the way to make sure you get a quarter circle forward motion. The tricky part here is obviously if you press the button too late, you're just gonna end up jumping instead, and that's a problem. So learn to press the button when you get to up forward. Try to time the button press to be at the exact same time you get to up forward. And now, if you see, if I walk forward and do the tiger knee input, I will come out with the quarter circle forward. This also goes for walking forward and canceling. For example, if I want to walk up with Rock and do heavy punch into light Reppuken, and I happen to be walking beforehand, oh boy, yeah, you're going to die pretty badly if that happens to you. So in the same way, do the tiger knee motion here, and you will come out with the quarter circle forward no matter what. Again, I'm pretty sure this is programmed intentionally by SNK, because even if I, for example, do quarter circle forward into straight up here, it still comes out with the rising tackle. Like, you have to just end the controller specifically at up forward to prevent yourself from doing the rising tackle by accident. So this is something that you're gonna have to learn early on in this game, because you will find yourself accidentally performing a DP motion, and for a lot of the characters that's just gonna get you killed. So again, unfortunately, you do have to practice this. It is a little bit of a tricky technique here, but with enough practice, it shouldn't be too difficult. Again, there is no other way. A lot of people have tried a lot of different techniques that don't work. The tiger knee method is going to be your most reliable way. Now, before we leave special moves over here, I want to talk about, in particular, the DP attacks, like Rock has here with the rising tackle, or Terry has with the power dunk. In City of the Wolves, 10 out of the 17 characters have this DP-like move, basically, that acts like an anti-air against airborne opponents. Kizak, Janae, Kevin, Hokutomaru, Billy, and Salvatore are the characters that do not have true DP-like moves. But for the other 10 characters, I want to point out that all of them behave identically to each other. And yes, I'm even counting Kain's flash kick move, the charge down up plus kick attack. It shares the same properties as all the characters with actual DP moves like this. For all of these 10 characters, the light version is the one that has true invincibility. As you can see on the side of the screen, the game even tells you invincible. You know, so when you want to use this move as a reversal, like, you know, when you're getting up off the ground, or, you know, for example, after you block something from an opponent and you want to counter them, you have to use the light version. Again, this is the same case for all 10 characters that have DPs. The heavy version, however, has no invincibility, no true invincibility. As you can see on the side of the screen, it doesn't even say invincible. However, it is actually invincible to airborne attacks. So for example, if your opponent is going to jump in at you like this, you can see that the heavy version, even though it doesn't say invincible, will always pass through moves that are in the air. They don't even have to be jump attacks, for example, here. As you can see here, the crack shoot is considered airborne, so Rock's heavy DP will always be able to beat it. However, to make up for the lack of invincibility from heavy DP moves, you can actually perform what is called a break on these versions of the move. So for example here, I do the heavy rising tackle with Rock, and you can see it goes up into the air and hits a bunch of times, but I can actually break the move on the first hit so that I don't go up in the air at all. This is really, really useful because, for example, if I'm just trying to hit my opponent with a combo and I don't know if he's gonna block or get hit, as you can see here, I'm a sitting duck and I'm gonna be taking a lot of damage. But being able to break it, I can keep myself safe. The opponent has the advantage in this situation, but at least I'm not going to die for just fishing with this combo. And the best thing about this is that the opponent actually gets hit by you trying to do the heavy DP in a combo like that. The break recovers fast enough that you can still get a pretty decent combo off of it if you react fast enough. And remember, I mentioned that the heavy version can be used as an anti-air. Well, if you even break it as an anti-air, you will still be able to get a big juggle combo afterwards as well. And this is particularly important because the opponent has the ability to just defend in the air and guard against your heavy DP. So if he does that, he gets to punish you really badly again when you land from the DP. So by breaking it, whenever you do an anti-air, as you can see here, you cannot be punished if the opponent happens to just defend. Now, obviously, if you're new to this game, you don't know what breaks are, you don't know what just defends are. Those will be talked about later on in this video and in future videos as well. But understanding that heavy versions of DPs can be canceled with a break like this is very, very important to learn for any character that has a DP-like move. So now let's move on to what are called Rev Arts. Rev Arts are enhanced versions of special moves. If you are familiar with other fighting games, this is City of the Wolves' equivalent of EX moves. You perform them simply by doing the motion for the special move, but instead of only pressing one of the punches or kicks, you will be pressing both of them at the same time. So here, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, I'm doing a quarter circle forward plus both punches. That makes Rock do the Rev Art version of his Reppuken. You'll note that whenever you perform a Rev Art, you see that little blue sparky explosion around your character, and your character will gain this yellow glow around them. So that's how you can recognize when your opponent, for example, does a Rev Art version of a special move. Now, the resulting move will always be a variation of the special move in some way. As you can see here, the Rev Art Reppuken, the Rev Art Rising Tackle, and the Rev Art Hard Edge here all just kind of look like the regular move. So for example, if I do heavy Reppuken or heavy Rising Tackle or heavy Hard Edge, they look pretty similar to the Rev Art version. There almost is no visual difference there outside of the glowing. But what the Rev Art versions of these moves will do is going to depend on the character and the special move itself. For example, sometimes the Rev Art version of a special move can be safer than the regular version. So even though the heavy version of Gato's Quaking Fang and the Rev Art version look very similar, the heavy version is not safe on block here. As you can see, Janae punishing that. However, the OD version can actually recover in time to block the attack. Sometimes the RevArt version of a special move can change the move's property almost entirely. For example, here, as you can see, Terry's Power Waves with Light Punch and Heavy Punch just throw the single fireball, but his RevArt version throws a much bigger version and a little bit slower as well, so that you can actually chase it and use the RevArt version of the Power Wave as a shield as you approach the opponent. And sometimes the RevArt version of a special move just sets you up for better combos. So for example, this move by Gato, the Soaring Fang, as you can see here, the opponent stays on the ground, but the RevArt version actually launches the opponent, allowing me to get longer combos out of this, for example. Now, RevArts do come with a cost. You can't just be throwing out enhanced versions of your specials all willy-nilly for free now, okay? If you look at the bottom left of your screen where the rev meter is, performing a RevArt will increase your rev meter by 25%, pushing you closer and closer to overheating. And if you're new to City of the Wolves, overheating is bad. It's bad. You do not want to overheat. So you do have to be conservative with your RevArts here, or else you're gonna find yourself to a point where you have now overheated yourself and you are much, much more vulnerable to the opponent's offense. However, the most powerful ability that RevArts have is the ability to chain into other RevArts that the character has. This is known as the Rev Excel technique. This allows you to perform some very devastating combos like that. But I don't want to go too much into detail about the Rev Excels, as we will be talking about that in another video. But for now, just note the fact that the first RevArt in a Rev Excel chain costs 25% as normal, but the second one costs 15%, the third one costs 10%, and they remain at 10% from that point forward. So if I do 3 of them in a row like this, you'll see that the total is 50, which is 25 plus 15 plus 10. So again, you know, experiment with your character's RevArts here. Figure out how they're different from the regular special moves, so you can, you know, maximize their effectiveness at what they can do. So moving on, one of the major mechanics of City of the Wolves that separates it from other fighting games are going to be the feints and the breaks. Now, of course, feints and breaks are two different mechanics in this game, but I'm going to lump them together because of their extreme similarity of usage, and also because of one thing that comes into play that helped me personally execute both feints and breaks more consistently. But first, let's discuss feints. Feints are the ability for your character to fake a special move, as I showed a little bit earlier. Rock can throw the Reppuken, but I can also feint the Reppuken. You see how he kind of starts the motion and then just stops partway through. So that's essentially what they are. They essentially perform the start of a special move's animation, then immediately stop and return to their neutral stance. Of course, you're completely vulnerable during these feints, so you can't block in the middle of the feints. But however, you'll notice that if you do get hit out of one of these feints, the game reads punish. Not wild punish, just regular punish. And what that means is that, you know, it hits you while you couldn't block, but it doesn't do any extra damage. It's not going to cause any sort of special knockdown that allows for bigger combos, etc., etc. So even if you do get hit out of a feint, it's going to be the same damage and same situation as if you were just hit while standing still. So that's at least a small little comfort there. So every character has 1 to 3 feints, and to perform them, you simply press Rev Guard and Heavy Kick at the same time while the controller is in neutral, while holding forward, or while holding straight down. Keep in mind that no other position will result in a feint. So for example, if I'm holding back or down back or even down forward, just basically the associated heavy kick will come out instead of the feint. Now, for characters that have less than 3 feints, basically the feints will be repeated through some of them. So for example, for Kain, his neutral and his forward feints are exactly the same, and he has an extra down feint. However, for Preacha, for example, she only has 1 feint, no matter which one you try. Also, before all the old schoolers out there vilify me here, the original input for feints in this game's predecessor, Mark of the Wolves, still works here in City of the Wolves. So instead of Rev Guard and Heavy Kick being pressed at the same time, if you press Heavy Punch and Light Kick at the same time, it also performs the feint. So if that's what you're used to from playing Mark of the Wolves long ago, you can still do that. However, a misinput, like if you're holding down forward, will result in a heavy punch instead of a heavy kick. But obviously, if you're careful, you shouldn't be getting too many misinputs with the feints at all. And I just want to say, there is a reason why I have emphasized the new input of Rev Guard plus Heavy Kick, but we'll get to that later. Now, using these feints as actual special move fakes can have its uses, kind of like, a head fake in American football. And yes, I'm gonna call it American football because, look, Ronaldo is in this game, okay? So I have to call that American football as opposed to the real football. So like a head fake in American or gridiron football. Now, in particular, projectile feints can be very, very useful here, like Rock's Reppuken feint here, against people who are really looking to jump over projectiles like that. And so if you know that that's what they're doing, you can actually throw out a Reppuken feint, get them to jump, and punish them. Or you can use them to fake out players who are just looking to counterattack your offense. However, where feints really shine are for pressure and for combos. Because they are fake special moves, they act just like special moves, in that normal attacks can cancel into feints. What this means is that you can attack the opponent with a normal attack that's normally punishable, like Rock's standing heavy punch, like so, and actually turn it into a safe attack by canceling it into a feint. Like so. So if you're fishing with buttons like this while fighting your opponent, you should always be canceling it into a feint to make sure you can't be punished. It is very important to note here, however, that not all feints are created equal, and in fact, if your character has multiple feints, they all have different speeds. And so in general, you want to find the fastest feint that you have. Otherwise, you could still be punished if you use a slower feint. So for example, Rock's forward feint, the fake Reppuken, is actually his fastest feint. As I said, if you cancel Heavy Punch into that, you cannot be punished. However, his other feints, his Rising Tackle feint and his Hard Edge feint, are a little bit slower. As you can see here, still punished here, and still punished here. So make sure you find your character's fastest feint and use that for basically any time you cancel a normal into a feint. But this whole time we've been talking about far standing heavy punch over here, but it's actually the close-up moves right here that really take advantage of feints the best. For example, Rock's close-up heavy kick is safe if the opponent blocks it, in that they can't punish you. However, the opponent clearly has the advantage in this situation as they get to act first. However, if I actually cancel that close heavy kick into the Reppuken feint like this, it actually recovers faster than just the close heavy kick by itself. So now I actually have the advantage. So this becomes a really potent offensive threat here, because I can always keep the pressure on the opponent even if they block my close-up heavy kick by canceling it into that Reppuken feint. But what makes this even more powerful is that if the opponent actually gets hit by the close heavy kick when I cancel into the Reppuken feint, I can actually react to that and go for a big damaging combo instead, like so. And this is something you'll learn when you become stronger at the game later on. This is kind of more of an intermediate thing, but you can absolutely react to whether or not your opponent is getting hit or if they block. As you can see here, I have them set to random on blocking over here. So you can react to what happens and do the appropriate follow-up here, like so. And make sure that on block, I go for the light attack to make sure I can always hit the opponent first. But if I hit them, I can switch to a more powerful move and go for a much bigger combo. So this particular sequence here, which is close heavy kick into forward feint, which is the Reppuken feint, is very, very strong for Rock, and something that if you're a Rock player, you're gonna want to integrate into your game. However, every character, it's gonna be different for them, right? It's gonna be a different button that you wanna cancel. Some of them are actually gonna be close heavy punch or crouching heavy punch, and instead of forward feint, it might be down feint or might even be neutral feint. So make sure you check with your character, experiment with them, and make sure you learn to use this box. Let me see if I can point. Yeah, right there. Use this box right here, where you actually see frame over here. And to test it out, you can use this box right here. Let me see if I can do, yeah, this box right here, especially this line where it says frame over here. This is very valuable information for yourself, and you can use that to check which of your feint cancels is the best for your character. So for example, with Rock, if I do heavy kick into down feint, it says -8, which means that basically the lower number it is, the worse it is. So -8 is bad. If I do the neutral feint, I'm only -2. Better, but if I do the forward feint, you see that I'm +2. So when it says plus, that means I can act first. So you can just take your character and experiment and find the right button combination into feint that actually gives you an advantage. And I'm pretty sure just about every character has at least one normal into a feint that gives them the advantage. Now keep in mind that I've been showing you heavy attacks into feints like this. Well, light attacks don't put the enemy in a blocking animation as long as heavy attacks do. You can see Terry is, holding that guard position a lot longer when I make him block a heavy kick than when I make him block the light kick. Well, that just means that canceling lights into feints is not really going to yield any benefits. Like for example, Rock standing light kick here is -5, right? So I'll cancel it into a feint to make it safer. Well, down feint is actually -16. Neutral feint is -10, and forward feint is -6. They're all actually worse because light attacks don't put the opponent into a block stun long enough. So in general, when you're canceling normals into feints like this, you're going to want to do the heavy attacks into your fastest feint to really take advantage of it. The only time that you would really actually want to cancel a light into a feint is if you're trying to actually legitimate use. The only time that you would actually try to cancel a light into a feint is when you're actually using it as the special move fake out. Otherwise, if your opponent is ready for it, they can actually punish you pretty bad for trying it. So make sure you have a good read on your opponent when you go for something like this, okay? So a good way to think about feints is that they can be used to cancel normal attacks into nothing, right? So you recover right away back into neutral. So you can act much quicker than if you just let the heavy attack go normally. Almost no special move in the game. There is an exception here and there, but almost no special move is faster than a feint. So this will always be the quickest way to recover if you're throwing out a heavy button. Of course, something like Rock's heavy kick can't be canceled, so you can't use it with a feint. You can't cancel into a feint with that, so keep that in mind, because it's only going to be, you know, certain buttons here that actually work canceling into feints. And again, experiment with your character to find the best the best feint cancel for your character to be able to keep the offense going on the opponent. Now, let's talk about breaks. Breaks are similar to feints, but again, remember I said think of that feints as canceling normals into nothing. Well, breaks are essentially the same thing, but they cancel special moves into nothing. So for example, Rock's heavy rising tackle can actually be canceled by using a break, like so. Normally, you would, you know, go all the way up into the air like this, but if you break it on the first hit, you can see that, you know, you stop the special move and don't even go into the air at all. Now, a lot of characters can also cancel their Rev Art versions of certain moves. Like, as you can see, the Rev Art Rising Tackle can also be canceled with a break. And in fact, some characters have gears, aka the supers in this game. Some characters even have gears that can be canceled by a break. So you'll have to take a look at your character's move list. It's rare that that can happen. But the nice thing about it is in the command list over here, you can actually see Rising Tackle has the BR listed next to it, which means you can break this. Same thing with the Hard Edge over here, and also his command throw as well. Rock can break his command throw as well. So be sure to go through your character's move list to see what moves can be broken. As you can see over here, Rock does have a super here, a red line gear that can actually be canceled by a break. Now, breaks are really, really easy to do, okay? Whereas feints required, you know, Rev Guard plus heavy kick, breaks only require the Rev Guard button. So for example, if I want to break Rock's heavy rising tackle, I just do the DP motion plus heavy punch and then immediately hit Rev Guard. And there you go. And it breaks. And the window for breaking moves is actually surprisingly generous, like a lot of the things that you can do in this game. So, you know, you don't have to try to time it exactly when you hit the opponent. Oftentimes, you know, you can hit it super early. There is such a thing as too early for certain breaks, but you can generally hit it pretty early on. Now, most moves that can be canceled by a break, it's only one specific point in the move that can be canceled into the break. As I mentioned, Rock's heavy rising tackle can be broken, like so, but you can't break it on any of the other hits. Like, there's no way to break it on any of the other hits. A move like Rock's Hard Edge, for example, this elbow attack right here, can only be canceled into a break before it hits the opponent. So you're just basically canceling the travel forward. But if you actually hit the opponent, you can't break anymore. So keep that in mind, that these special moves that can be canceled by a break, it's almost always a very specific singular point at which the move can be canceled into a break. So remember back with feints, I talked about if your controller is in the wrong position, like down forward, and you try to feint, you won't come out with a feint, you actually just come out with a normal attack. Little side note, this is also important for the feint cancels, because if you actually hold diagonally, for example, you won't be able to feint cancel. You have to hold directly down and directly forward. The nice thing about breaks is it doesn't matter where you have the controller at all. I can have it at up and I still do the break. I can have it at down. I can have it at forward. I can have it at back. As long as you hit the break button, you will cancel it. Doesn't matter where the controller is. So it's a lot easier to break special moves than it is to perform feints. So another thing that's really important about breaks is, I already showed you, for example, the hard edge break, which basically, you have to do it before you hit the opponent, while his heavy rising tackle, as I mentioned, is only breakable on this first hit. The thing about it is, you actually don't have to hit the opponent with this. I can break it anywhere. So even if I miss, I can just break it right away. So again, I don't even need to hit the opponent, block or hit, whatever. I can do this anytime that I want. So keep that in mind for a lot of the different characters in this game, because this kind of thing is going to be useful for certain characters. And once again, before the old school players vilify me again, yes, the original input for breaks from Mark of the Wolves does still work, and that is actually light punch and light kick. So this is a throw. This is a throw input, but when you're doing it during a special move, it'll actually trigger the break instead. So once again, if you have the old school muscle memory, or you just prefer not using lots of extra buttons for macros and stuff like that, you can still do it without having to use the rev guard button. So one of the reasons why I lump these two mechanics together, even though feints and breaks are pretty different, is because breaks act kind of the same. Like I said, feints are good for canceling normals into nothing, and breaks are good at canceling special moves into, quote, nothing. And so you can apply a lot of the same tactics that I use with feints with breaks as well. So, for example, a pretty obvious one, I think, that, you've already seen, is that if I try to do a DP like this and my opponent blocks it, well, I'm dead because, he gets to punish me. But if I actually break it, I'm safe, I can't be punished, but my opponent has the advantage. But that's way better than just eating, straight up, a big old combo for getting your heavy DP blocked like that. Now, I do keep saying heavy DP for a reason, because Rock's light DP cannot be canceled by a break, okay? It's only the heavy DP and the Rev Arts DP, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. Some special moves can only be canceled with specific versions. The nice thing about that is if you do, once again, look at the command list, they tell you this. So if you look at the description on the right side, it says you can break the heavy and rev versions on the first attack. So they explicitly tell you, and in fact, if you watch the little video, I believe it'll show the break. I think it does show a break here, a break example. Let me see. There it is, yay! So there you go. It even shows you what the break looks like. So if you have trouble visualizing it or trying to figure out where the break occurs, you can watch that little video on the side and get an understanding of where your move is supposed to be canceled into the break. Now, one of the fun things you can do with breaks is that if you combine them with feints, things can get kind of tricky here. For example here, the hard edge, this elbow attack right here from Rock, I told you that you can break it, part way through it, right? Before it actually hits the opponent. But you know what? His down feint is also, a hard edge fake. So, you have one way to fake it like this and another way to fake it like that. And so you can get into some really tricky mind games with your opponent this way. So in this hypothetical scenario here, you can see that my rock has no health left, so I'm really scared of the burn knuckle to chip me to death, basically. And so Terry can have a field day like this. Oh. And you see right there, the first two were actually feints, and the second one was a break that I tried to do a high dodge attack to counter. But, between the feints and the breaks, you can really kind of mess with people's head in this game and catch people off guard like that. But I really want to take the time to highlight the DP into break. By far, this is going to be where you use break the most. If you have a character that has a DP move that serves as an anti-air and has an invincible version, etc., etc., the heavy DP into break is so valuable. Remember how I talked about using standing heavy kick into the forward feint like that, and on block you can do one thing, and if you hit them you can go into a big old combo. The same thing applies to these heavy DPs. So as I mentioned, this, for example, will get you killed, but if you're just kind of fishing and do this, you're safe. You can't be punished. And so you can keep yourself from getting killed by just doing that. So, I'm just trying to hit the opponent from, a little bit of distance away here, and I can keep myself safe. But if your opponent actually gets hit by it, like so, again, there's plenty of time to react to that and pivot into a combo because you can still juggle them after hitting them with the DP into break, like so. So it's a really, really powerful tactic to have. And you're gonna find that this works with anti-airing jumping opponents as well. Remember I said that the heavy versions of these DPs are air invul. They actually can beat anything that is considered airborne. So for example, you can just use the heavy DP like this to stop a jump attack. The thing is, why not break this as well? You can do the same kind of damage just by anti-airing an opponent and getting a ton of damage for the opponent making the mistake of jumping in on you. And one of the things that makes this so crucial to always break your heavy DP anti-airs is there are just defends in this game. I won't get into how to do them just yet, but know that your opponent can actually block your anti-air with a just defend. And so if you just go for the DP like this, you're gonna get punished pretty badly. But if I break like that, I'm safe. And in fact, I have an advantage like that. So if you're going to anti-air the opponent, you think, well, why don't I just use the light one? Because it's fully invincible. This is why, because like I said, the light one can't be canceled by a break. So you use the heavy one so that in case your opponent just defends it, you're safe. And if you hit them, you can still get a combo. So if your character has a DP-like move, this should be the main way that you're anti-airing jumping opponents. Is with the break and the heavy version of your DP. Also, you're going to find that doing a heavy DP into break in combos is going to be so important for extending combos to do a lot more damage. Is because no matter whether you hit them on the ground or out of the air, it always launches the opponent upwards. And so this actually becomes a universal way to easily land any of your gears, aka supers. So for example, you can just link into Rock's Punch Super, or you can link into, a stronger kick super. Again, hitting someone with a DP into break almost always allows you just to combo a super directly. And that's going to be one of the best ways you're going to maximize damage on the opponents, is by hitting them with those supers at the end of your combos. So if you start using heavy DP into break in the middle of combos, you can start dishing out some major damage here. Like so. So definitely keep that in mind to use those DPs into breaks to really get the long extended combos for big damage. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned that I have a reason for putting feints and breaks together in one category. I also mentioned that there's a reason why I'm promoting the modern way to do these inputs of doing feints with Rev Guard plus heavy kick and doing breaks with just the Rev button, like so. So when I started this section, I said that there's a reason why I wanted to put breaks and feints together in one category as opposed to two separate mechanics. I also mentioned that I really wanted to teach you guys to do the feints by hitting Rev Guard and heavy kick at the same time, as well as doing breaks just by pressing the Rev Guard button. The reason for this is that you can kind of think of them as one mechanic in a sense, because like I said, feints are for canceling normals into nothing, and breaks are for canceling special moves into nothing. And so now, as opposed to having to remember, okay, feints are this, and breaks are this. You know what? If you go into the button config right here and find where feint is and assign a button to feint, which is Rev Guard plus heavy kick. So I have that right here. I have a button set to that. So I'm just pressing a single button and I'm getting this. Now here's the thing. Feints can only be done in neutral while I'm walking around like this, or when I cancel normals into a feint, like so. Breaks only work for special moves. So there are no situations in the game where you can do a break and a feint at the same time. Anytime you can do a break, you can't do a feint. Anytime you can do a feint, you can't do a break. And so by assigning it to one button here, assigning the feint to one button here, it also hits Rev Guard. So anytime I want to cancel a normal into a feint, or if I want to cancel a special move into a break, I am using the same single button. This one button will now handle every situation where I want to feint and when I want to break, because Rev Guard plus heavy kick will activate the feint and the break. And again, there is no moment during a regular match in which the game can ever get those two inputs confused, because you can never do a break when you can do a feint, and you can never do a feint when you can do a break. So this is a really, really nice shortcut that I taught myself here to make it so much easier to keep in mind, oh shoot, am I breaking this one? Am I feinting? No, it's just one thing. Put it in your mind as one thing. So, obviously if you guys are used to this and played a lot of Mark of the Wolves, then yeah, you can use the old inputs, or you work better by thinking of them as separate mechanics. But if you're new to this game, again, I did not play Mark of the Wolves in the past. So a lot of these mechanics are new to me. By assigning it to just one button, it really makes it so that I don't have to think about which mechanic I'm using. To me, it's all just, canceling into nothing. And it's always going to be one button. I don't have to think of them as multiple mechanics. And so anytime I need to feint cancel or break, I just use the same button, and it makes it so much clearer in my head that way. But again, I mentioned that, feints and breaks are really kind of what, almost kind of defines City of the Wolves a little bit as a separation from a lot of other 2D fighting games like this. They are very, very valuable. When you watch high level play, people are going to be using breaks all over the place, especially that heavy DP in the break, like I was telling you a little bit earlier. And like I said, with the feints, you know, people are going to be canceling normals and the feints all over the place for pressure, for combos, etc., etc. And, you know, for hit confirms, like I mentioned before, you can react. If they block, do one thing. If they get hit, do another thing. It's called a hit confirm. And feints are so valuable for that. So if you're getting into City of the Wolves, and, you know, if you're a beginner and you're not using feints and breaks right away, that's okay. But keep in mind that these are going to be very, very valuable and very crucial to your entire strategy in the game once you start getting into more advanced situations. So try early on to start integrating them into your gameplay. You don't have to worry about any crazy combos right away, but just know that this is something very valuable. Keep it in mind. And as I said, even if you don't use it for, you know, the first, you know, week or so that you're playing, that's fine. But eventually you're going to have to start picking it up. So I want to at least just emphasize how important these mechanics are. So, you know, if you're just starting Fatal Fury, like I said, just always remember feints and breaks are there. And make sure that at some point you do start integrating them into your gameplay early on so that it's not hard to inject it into your muscle memory. It's just built naturally from the beginning. And so you've already heard me talk about gears, right? AKA supers is what I keep saying, right? Well, this is the last offensive mechanic that I really want to talk about for this video. The gears are your supers. Basically, most fighting games have super combos, and I've been clarifying them as supers because, well, there's another game, fighting game, that I think of when I hear the word gears, okay? So, you know, I just want to make sure whenever I say gears here, it doesn't sound confusing if you happen to be a Guilty Gear fan, that gears are just supers that you can perform in City of the Wolves. Now, as with most fighting games with supers, the gears have their own resource to use to actually perform them. You'll notice, like right by Rock's feet over there, there's those two long rectangles at the bottom of the screen. That is your power gauge. And as you battle, as you do attacks here, you know, and do damage to your opponent, or as you do special moves, you'll see that they start filling up as you keep doing all assorted different kinds of actions. A bunch of different things will build your meter during the course of playing. And eventually, when you actually get the block filled up, as you can see, a little star appears above it and it starts glowing. That's how you know that the block is actually filled up. And so eventually, as you keep playing, it'll get completely full. You can see right there the 2 stars at the bottom of the screen by Rock's feet, which means you have 2 bars of your power gauge. And so with these 2 bars of your power gauge, this is what you have to spend to be able to do, essentially, you know, for ease of discussion, I'm going to call them level 1 supers, level 2 supers, and level 3 supers. But in this game, their technical names are ignition gears, those are the level 1s, red line gears, those are the level 2s, and hidden gears, and those are the level 3s. Now, one of the nice things about the gears, or the supers here in this game, is that they're organized pretty logically here. Every character has a punch super and a kick super, except for one person, I'll get into that later. But every character has a punch super and a kick super. And they're almost always done, except for one character, with 2 quarter circle forward motions in a row, and either punch or kick. Now, remember, quarter circle forward was just the one time of you going down, down, forward, forward, but double quarter circle forward or 236 for you numpad notation studiers out there, is 2 quarter circle forwards. And if you can do that into a button, you come out with one of your supers here. And again, like I said, every character has 2 different versions, one with punch and one with kick. Now here's the nice thing about it. Like I said, if you think about the ignition gears as level 1 supers and the red line gears as level 2 supers, you'll find out that you just perform them by using either light punch or heavy punch. Light punch for the ignition gear, heavy punch for the red line gear. And the only difference between them is that one requires, the ignition gears require 1 block of your power gauge, as you can see there. And as long as you have at least 1 bar full, you can always do your ignition gear. So Rock's punch super, his ignition gear, the level 1, done with punch, is his Raging Storm, like this, and again, takes 1 block. The red line gear actually requires you to have both bars full. And when you do it now, this time with the heavy punch button, you will activate a much stronger version of your super. And so here, just to demonstrate, this is Rock's kick button supers. And that's the ignition gear, and this is the red line gear. As you can see, you know, a little bit different animation, but essentially, you want to think of the ignition gear and the red line gear kind of as the same super, just one is stronger than the other. And in fact, if you look at the command list, you'll see when they list the ignition gear and the red line gears, they actually have the exact same names. So even in the game itself, it considers them the same super between the ignition gear and the red line gear. So again, it's organized really, really nicely here because every character has double quarter circle forward with punch as 1 super, and double quarter circle forward with kick as another super. And you want to think of using light punch or heavy punch as doing the level 1 or the level 2 based on how much resources you have in your power gauge. So again, as I said, there's always exceptions to the rule. Say hi to Jasmine here, everybody. Hi, Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine. Over here. And T-Zoc and Kim Dong-hwan are the exceptions here. T-Zoc does not have double quarter circle forward plus punch because he's a grappler, a command grab character. So he has the infamous 720 motion, which is 2 full circles on the controller plus punch. And that does his punch versions of his supers. And then Kim Dong-hwan, because he's all, you know, he mostly kicks, I should say, both of his supers are actually done with quarter circle forward plus kick. So you're like, but like, what? How does the game distinguish between the two? Well, it's also because Kim Dong-hwan is the only character with an air super. And so they're both double quarter circle forward plus kick, except one has to be done on the ground like so, and the other one has to be done in the air like so. Now, as of launch, these are the only exceptions, and Kim Dong-hwan, that air super that he has, is the only super that can be done in the air for now. As we add more DLC characters to the game, obviously this can change, and some characters may have, you know, supers or gears that can be done on the ground and in the air, or maybe just the air, and maybe we'll get some different inputs involved. But right now, outside of those 2 supers right here, which is the, you know, 2 360s with punch with T-Zoc and the air kick super with Kim Dong-hwan, every character has quarter circle forward times 2 plus punch and quarter circle forward times 2 plus kick. That is universal except for these 2 characters here. So remember I said earlier in the break section that some characters can actually break some of their supers. For example, if you look at Rock here, his Shining Knuckle can actually be canceled by a break. The thing about it is, so far, again, as of the launch roster, any character that has a super or a gear that can be canceled into a break, it's always a redline gear. There so far is no ignition gears that can be canceled into a break at all. And again, this is not even a universal thing for every character. So if you look at Kyne over here, none of his redline gears can be broken at all. So not every character has it, but when they do, it's almost, well, actually it is only level 2s thus far. Again, will DLC characters change that? Perhaps, but we'll see how it goes. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that in the break section here, you can cancel moves with the break even when you whiff. Like for example, like that, if I don't actually perform a break, Gato will follow the stomp with a jump, but I can break it even on whiff. That is not the case for the redline gears that can actually be canceled with a break. As you can see here, Gato's punch super, redline punch super, can actually be canceled into a break. So normally, if you actually see the super, he punches and he goes into this whole thing where he breaks your neck and slams you to the ground. Yep. But if you actually break it, you don't do any of that follow-up here, but you can extend the combo manually. So for example, I could combo into his redline gear, here break it, and still continue the combo afterwards.
Now I'm mad.
And now Janae is mad. However, what I was trying to get at is that if it is whiffed, you cannot break it. You are going to take just as long to recover on a normal whiff like this, even if you try to break it here. You're gonna see that he's not gonna jump any faster. And the same also goes for if the opponent blocks your redline gear as well. You can't break it to save yourself. You're just gonna be extremely punishable in this situation. So it only breaks on hit, and that goes for, I'm pretty sure, just about every redline gear that can be canceled by a break. One more thing that you got to be a little careful about here is that if you only have one block of your power gauge full here, you might think that trying to input the super and hitting heavy punch will just do the level 1 for you. No, it really doesn't. So it's specifically, you have to hit light punch to do the level 1 and heavy punch to do the level 2. Same for the kicks as well. They're not going to help you here if you just do it with the heavy punch and they're like, yeah, but you have one block full, so we'll let you do the ignition gear. No, they're not gonna be that nice in this game. So obviously so far, I haven't said anything about the final gear, the hidden gear, right? The level 3 super. Many games require you to be at low health to be able to perform a level 3 super, or one of those desperation supers as they like to call it. But not here in City of the Wolves. It can be, but it all depends on where you put the SPG portion of your health bar. So you can see right now, for both of the characters, it's at the tail end of their health bars. However, I can move that to the very front. And so being in the SPG portion of your health bar is the extra requirement to do a hidden gear. Otherwise, it's basically the same requirements as a redline gear. It requires both blocks of the power gauge, and then you just have to make sure that your character's in SPG. Obviously, we haven't talked about SPG at all, and you're like, wait, James, what the heck is SPG? We'll get there in a later video when we talk all about, what SPG does for you. But just know that you have to be an SPG to do the hidden gear. And so far, every character on the launch roster, it has done the same. It's double quarter circle forward plus Rev Guard. The only button left that hasn't been used for Ignition and Redline Super. So again, double quarter circle forward plus Rev Guard. And that activates your hidden gear, which does a chunk of damage here. Look at that. That was over a third of his life for doing that, for doing the hidden gear. Now, the hidden gears are just their own unique super. I mean, some of them might have similarities to the other Ignition gears or the Redline gears, but for the most part, you know, you can consider the hidden gear as its own kind of super. But again, it just deals a chunk of damage. It deals a lot of damage. So it's a great way to go for comebacks or just finish somebody off once they're, you know, once you get a good clean hit when they're at like 50% life and you have all the requirements. You can just do a combo into the hidden gear and do a ton of damage. It's interesting because a lot of fighting games these days, you know, try to add a lot more ways for you to combo into supers. Like some fighting games have it so that you can cancel special moves into your supers, etc., etc. That's not the case here in City of the Wolves, outside of just canceling a grounded normal into one of your supers directly like that. Otherwise, the best way that you're going to be able to combo into the supers, as I mentioned before, are through juggles, right? And a lot of it, and the easiest way when you're just starting out and you want to learn a combo that easily juggles into a super, just find a good combo that leads into the heavy DP break or the Rev Art DP break, and just link the supers off of that, including the hidden gears like this. Like I said, with almost every character, and again, 10 out of the 17 characters have you know, a DP move like this that you can break. It's like guaranteed to work for just about every hidden gear. But I do want to add one thing that all of the gears can do that make them a little bit scarier. Remember when I talked about canceling into specials or canceling into feints, you know, like this? That only certain moves cancel into them. Like, so for example, I can do standing heavy punch into a feint or standing heavy punch into Reppuken. But if I try to cancel standing heavy kick, oh, I can't do any of that because standing heavy kick is not a cancelable button. Well, you know what? Gears say screw that rule, and pretty much every attack that you have outside of sweeps and outside of command normals can be canceled into a gear. So yes, Rock can do heavy kick into an Ignition gear. He can do heavy kick into a Redline gear. And yes, he can do heavy kick into a hidden gear. Again, it's only the sweeps and command normals that cannot be canceled into the gears. So if your character happens to have, you know, a bunch of command normals, you can't use those. Now, some characters actually have, for example, if you go to their command list, their command moves over here, which I've been calling command normals, but command moves over here, he has mostly stances here. Now, this is the exception right here of the command moves, is once you go into a stance, different attacks will have their own unique properties here. So for example, when Salvatore goes into his stance, he can actually cancel the heavy kick follow-up into any of the supers that he wants. So even though those are listed as command normals, you have to think of stances as something different than just the standard command normals, command moves that other characters have. And for those people out there who are more familiar with fighting games, I know what you're thinking, and the answer is yes, okay? For you high-level players out there, because heavy attacks like Rock standing heavy kick can be canceled into gears, and that the hit stun is a little bit longer, you can absolutely do single hit confirms. Now, if you're a beginner, don't worry about this. This is for way down the road. But I just wanted to make sure I mentioned this, that if you set their guard to random, you can absolutely use technique to react to whether they get hit or if they block. Again, for those beginners out there, don't worry about this for now. You'll get there someday. I believe you will get there someday. But for those of you who are intermediate players who are ready to move on to things like single hit confirms, it absolutely works off of heavy buttons. And so there you have it. Those are the rest of the offensive mechanics that exist here in City of the Wolves. Outside of, obviously there was the first video which covered normals and, you know, high dodge attack, low dodge attacks. I know people out there are going to be like, wait, that's not everything, right? And you're right. There's going to be a lot more systems here to talk about, and we'll get to those in future videos, like I said, where I talk about SPG, when I start talking way more details about the rev meter, because we haven't even started delving into that. So make sure you like and subscribe, and comment below if you are enjoying these, if you are finding these helpful for you, if you are finding these very educational and useful, and you like a lot of the extra tips that I'm throwing in there for beginners. If you appreciate all that stuff, please let me know, and keep an eye out for the future videos coming for all the rest of the mechanics here for Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. I'll see you next time. Peace.